The conference room doors flew open, and I stood there, 8 months pregnant, holding a stack of printed text messages in one hand and my ultrasound photos in the other. My mother-in-law's face drained of color. My husband tried to stand, knocking his water glass across the mahogany table. The room full of relatives went silent as I said the words I'd been rehearsing for weeks. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back 3 months, to the day everything I thought I knew turned to ash. I was folding laundry in our bedroom when I felt the flutter. You know that first movement, like butterfly wings inside you? I dropped the shirt I was holding and just stood there, hand on my belly, crying happy tears. We'd been trying for 2 years. 2 years of negative tests, of hope dying month after month. 2 years of temperature charts and ovulation sticks and timed intimacy that stopped feeling intimate somewhere around month 6. 2 years of watching friends announce their pregnancies on social media while I smiled through the ache in my chest and pretended I was happy for them when really I was drowning in jealousy and grief. I'd started to believe it might never happen for us. Started researching adoption agencies and fertility treatments we couldn't quite afford. Started having those dark 3 a.m. thoughts where you wonder if maybe you're being punished for something, if maybe you don't deserve this fundamental human experience that seems to come so easily to everyone else. And finally, it was real. I couldn't wait to tell Mark when he got home from work. I had this whole thing planned, a little box with the pregnancy test and a card that said, Daddy. I spent the afternoon arranging it just right, changing the bow 3 times, rehearsing what I'd say. Looking back now, the memory tastes like metal in my mouth, because I had no idea what was waiting for me. Mark seemed happy when I told him. He hugged me, said all the right things. That's amazing, honey. I can't believe it. We're going to be parents. But there was something in his eyes, something I couldn't quite read. A flicker of something that wasn't joy, wasn't excitement. Was it fear? Doubt? I told myself I was imagining it, that he was just overwhelmed, that men process these things differently. He suggested we tell his mother together that weekend at her place. I thought it was sweet, including her in this special moment. She'll be so excited to be a grandmother, he said, and I agreed, picturing her face lighting up, imagining her hugging me, welcoming me fully into the family in a way I'd always felt just outside of. God, I was so stupid. Saturday came and we drove to his mother's house in Phoenix, this sprawling ranch-style place she'd lived in for 30 years. The Arizona heat was brutal even in October, and I remember the air conditioning in her living room felt like ice against my skin. The house smelled like it always did, like lemon furniture polish and something floral I could never quite identify. She offered us lemonade, made small talk about the weather, about the traffic on the I-10, about her neighbor's new landscaping. Then Mark cleared his throat and said, Mom, we have some news. I was beaming, probably looked like an idiot with this huge smile on my face. We're having a baby, I announced, reaching for Mark's hand. His mother set down her glass very carefully. Her face did this thing, this tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. Is that so? She said, and her voice had this edge to it, like a knife wrapped in velvet. Yes, I said, confused by her reaction. We're due in April. She looked at Mark, not at me, just looked at him with this expression I couldn't decipher. Then she turned to me and said, Well, I suppose congratulations are in order. But she didn't sound congratulatory. She sounded like she'd just been told someone died. The silence that followed was suffocating. I waited for her to ask questions, to want to see the ultrasound picture I'd brought, to talk about nursery colors or baby names. But she just sat there, her hands folded in her lap, her mouth a thin line. Mark shifted beside me, and I could feel the tension radiating off him in waves. The drive home was weird. Mark was quiet, gripping the steering wheel too hard, his knuckles white in the glow of the streetlights. I tried to talk about nursery colors, about names, but he just kept saying yeah and uh-huh without really listening. When we got home, he said he had work to catch up on and disappeared into his office. I sat alone in our living room, that flutter of movement still happening in my belly, wondering why I felt so cold, wondering why the happiest moment of my life suddenly felt like I'd done something wrong. Over the next few weeks, things got stranger. His mother started calling more often, always when I wasn't in the room. I'd hear Mark's voice through the door, hushed and tense. Once I walked in on him mid-conversation and he practically threw his phone across the room, said it was just work stress. But the look on his face, I'm telling you, it was guilt. Pure, undiluted guilt. I started paying attention, started noticing the way he'd step outside to take her calls, the way he'd close his laptop quickly when I came into the room, the way his face would change when I mentioned the baby, like a shutter coming down behind his eyes. I tried to talk to him about it one evening. We were in the kitchen, him making coffee, me cutting vegetables for dinner. The normalcy of it felt like a lie. "Mark, can we talk about your mom?" I said, trying to keep my voice casual. He stiffened, didn't turn around. "What about her? She doesn't seem very excited about the baby, and you've been different since we told her." "Different how?" Still not looking at me. The coffee maker hissed and gurgled. "Distant, like you're avoiding me, or avoiding talking about the pregnancy." Finally he turned. His face was carefully blank. "I'm just stressed about work. It's not about you." But it was. I could feel it in the space between us, growing wider every day. "Is it the baby? Are you having second thoughts?" "Of course not. Too quick, too defensive. I just need you to give me some space to process everything. This is a big change." "We've been trying for 2 years," I said, my voice breaking, despite my efforts to stay calm. "How is it a surprise?" He set down his coffee mug with more force than necessary. "Can we not do this right now, please?" And that was it. That was the conversation. He left the room, left me standing there with a knife in my hand and vegetables half chopped, feeling like I'd just lost something important but couldn't name what it was. Then came Thanksgiving. We were all at his mother's house again, the whole extended family. Aunts, uncles, cousins I'd met maybe twice. I was 12 weeks along by then, starting to show just a little. I wore this empire waist dress, navy blue with little flowers on it. I thought I looked nice, maternal. His mother cornered me in the kitchen while I was getting ice. The other women were in the dining room setting the table, their voices a distant murmur. She stood between me and the door, her arms crossed, and she looked at my stomach like it was a tumor. "Take it off," she said. I blinked. "I'm sorry, what?" "That." She gestured at my belly, at the slight curve under my dress. "Take it off. Stop this charade." The ice tray slipped from my hands and clattered into the sink. I just stared at her, my brain unable to process what she was saying. "I don't understand." "Don't play innocent with me," she hissed, and I could smell her perfume, something floral and cloying that made my pregnant stomach turn. "I know what you're doing, trapping my son with this fake pregnancy nonsense, but I see through you." I felt the room tilt. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. "Fake? I have ultrasound pictures. I've been to the doctor. This is real." She laughed, actually laughed. This brittle sound like breaking glass. "Oh, I'm sure you've been very creative with your little props. But you're not fooling me. Mark deserves better than some manipulative little gold digger who thinks she can secure her future with lies. Have you ever felt like your own sanity was being held up to a mirror and questioned? Like reality itself was something you could no longer trust? That's where I was standing, in that pristine Phoenix kitchen with the smell of turkey wafting in from the oven, being told my pregnancy was a performance piece. I touched my belly instinctively, protective, and felt that flutter again. Real. It was real, wasn't it? My hands were trembling. I could feel tears building behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall, not in front of her. "You're insane," I whispered. "Why would I lie about this?" "Money," she said simply, and her voice was so cold, so certain. "My son's money, his inheritance. You think I don't know your type? But you made a mistake. You should have waited until after the wedding to pull this stunt. Oh, wait, you already trapped him with that ring, didn't you?" I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw something. Instead, I just stood there frozen while she brushed past me back to the dining room like nothing had happened. When I finally made my feet move, I found Mark in the living room and pulled him aside, told him what his mother had just said. His face went pale, but not with outrage. With something else. Something that looked an awful lot like panic. "She's just protective," he said, not meeting my eyes. "You know how mothers are with their sons. Mark, she told me to take off my pregnancy, like it's a costume, like I'm lying to you. She's old-fashioned. She probably just needs time to adjust to the idea." He was making excuses, his hands fidgeting with his belt buckle. "Can we not make a scene today? It's Thanksgiving." And that's when it clicked. That's when I realized he wasn't defending me because some part of him, some twisted part, believed her, or wanted to believe her. Or, and this possibility made my blood run cold, already knew what she was going to say because they'd discussed it. I made it through dinner somehow, pushed food around my plate while his family made polite conversation and his mother smiled at me like she hadn't just called my baby a fraud. Every time someone asked about the pregnancy, she'd interject with something else, changing the subject so smoothly it was like watching a magician redirect your attention. "Oh, speaking of growing things, have you seen my garden?" Or, "That reminds me of this article I read." Never giving me space to talk about it, never acknowledging it directly. Mark's Aunt Susan asked me directly at one point, "How are you feeling? Any morning sickness?" I opened my mouth to answer, grateful for someone who actually seemed to care, but his mother cut in immediately. "Susan, you simply must try this cranberry sauce. I used a new recipe this year." Susan looked confused, glanced at me, then at the cranberry sauce. The moment passed. The conversation moved on. I might as well have been invisible. After dinner, I found myself alone in the hallway, needing a moment away from the suffocating pretense. That's when Mark's grandmother found me. She was 92, sharp as a tack, with eyes that missed nothing. "You look pale, dear," she said, her voice soft with concern. "I'm fine," I lied. "Just a little tired." She studied me for a long moment. "My daughter-in-law," she said, meaning Mark's mother, "she can be difficult, especially with the women her sons marry." I looked at her, startled. Was she warning me? Sympathizing? "When Mark's father and I were first married," she continued, "she told him I was trying to steal him away from her. Made quite a fuss. Of course, he chose her. They always do." She patted my hand. "You take care of yourself and that baby. That's what matters." She walked away before I could respond, leaving me with a chill that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. Mark drove us home in silence again. When we got to our house, he went straight to the bedroom and I heard him on the phone. I pressed my ear to the door and caught fragments. "I know, Mom, I know, but what if she really is? We can't just—" "No, I hear you, but legally. Okay. Yes. I'll handle it." "Handle what? Handle me." My hands were shaking so hard I had to sit down on the hallway floor, my back against the wall, that flutter in my belly reminding me I wasn't crazy, wasn't making this up. But the doubt was creeping in anyway, because that's what they do, isn't it? They plant seeds of uncertainty until you're questioning your own heartbeat. I thought about calling my mom, but we'd been distant lately. Mark had made comments about how she was too involved, too critical of our relationship. "She doesn't respect our boundaries," he'd say. And like a fool, I'd believed him. I'd stopped taking her calls, let her texts go unanswered, chose my husband over the woman who raised me because I thought that's what good wives did. Sacrifice, prioritize, submit. Same thing with my best friend Rachel. She'd tried to warn me about Mark's family before the wedding. "They're too controlling," she'd said over coffee. "The way his mother talks about you when you're not around, it's weird, like you're competition." But I'd laughed it off, told Rachel she was being paranoid. Eventually, she stopped reaching out. I told myself it was natural, that friendships evolved, that my marriage came first now. So there I was, alone in a hallway, 8 weeks pregnant, and being gaslit by my own family, with no one to turn to because I'd systematically cut off everyone who might have helped me see the truth. I sacrificed my support system on the altar of being a good daughter-in-law, a good wife. And they'd counted on that, hadn't they? They'd encouraged it, praised it, made me think isolation was the same thing as devotion. The weeks crawled by and the treatment got worse. His mother started sending Mark articles about false pregnancy claims, about women who faked ultrasounds to trap men. She'd email them with little notes like, "Thought you should see this," and "Just want you to be careful." Mark would leave his computer open and I'd see them, these horrible stories about deceitful women. And I'd wonder if he was reading them, if he was believing them. At my 16-week appointment, I asked Mark to come with me. "I have a meeting," he said, not looking up from his phone. "Can you reschedule?" "It's to hear the heartbeat," I said quietly. "I thought you'd want to be there. I'll come to the next one." But he never did. Every appointment I went to alone, every milestone I celebrated by myself. When I tried to show him the ultrasound pictures, he'd glance at them for half a second before finding an excuse to leave the room. His mother called it giving me space to process. I called it abandonment. Christmas came and I was 20 weeks along, visibly pregnant now. We went to his mother's house again because apparently that's what we did. We just kept showing up to the place where I was slowly being erased. She'd invited the whole family again, and when I walked in wearing a maternity top, she actually gasped. Put her hand to her chest like I'd slapped her. "My goodness," she said loudly enough for everyone to hear. "How long are you planning to keep this up?" People turned to look. Mark's Aunt Susan frowned. His cousin David shifted uncomfortably. But nobody said anything. Nobody asked what she meant or told her to stop. They just looked away, went back to their conversations, let it happen. I excused myself to the bathroom and locked the door, sat on the edge of the tub and tried to breathe through the tightness in my chest. The baby kicked, hard enough that I could see the movement through my shirt, and I started crying. Not sad crying, but angry crying. The kind where you're so furious you can barely see straight, but you can't do anything about it, so the rage just leaks out of your eyes. There was a knock. "Occupied," I called out. "It's me." Mark's voice, quiet. I opened the door. He slipped inside and closed it behind him. We stood in his mother's bathroom with the seashell soap and the monogrammed towels, and I waited for him to say something, anything, that would make this okay. "She's having a hard time with this," he said finally. "A hard time with what? With me being pregnant? With your child existing? With the timing? With, everything moving so fast?" "We've been married for 3 years, Mark. How is that fast?" He ran his hand through his hair, a gesture I used to find endearing. Now it just looked like a tell, like he was about to lie. "Can you just try to be patient with her? She'll come around. And if she doesn't?" He didn't answer, just looked at me with this helpless expression, like I was asking him to choose between us, and the choice was too hard. That should have been my answer right there, the fact that it was even a question. But I was still hoping, still believing, that love would fix this, that time would heal it, that I just needed to be more understanding, more forgiving, more invisible. I went home that night and did something I hadn't done in months. I called my mom. She answered on the first ring, her voice careful, like she was afraid I might hang up. "Hi, baby," she said, and I started crying all over again. "Mom, I'm so sorry. For everything. For pushing you away. Oh, honey, it's okay. Tell me what's wrong." And I did. I told her everything. The accusations, the gaslighting, the way Mark wouldn't defend me. She listened without interrupting, and when I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "Do you have somewhere you can go?" she asked finally. "If you need to leave?" "I'm not leaving. This is my home, my marriage." "Your marriage ended the first time he let his mother call you a liar," she said gently. "You just haven't admitted it yet." But I wasn't ready to hear that. I told her I had to go, promised to call again soon, hung up before she could say anything else that might crack the fragile shell I'd built around my denial. Because that's what it was, wasn't it? Denial. The blind belief that if I just tried hard enough, loved hard enough, sacrificed enough, it would be okay. January brought new horrors. I came home from a prenatal yoga class to find Mark and his mother in our living room, going through a stack of papers. They looked up when I walked in, guilty expressions on both their faces. "What's going on?" I asked. "We're just reviewing some financial documents," his mother said smoothly, "making sure everything's in order." "What financial documents?" Mark cleared his throat. "Mom thinks we should set up a trust. For the baby. If there is a baby, you know, just to be safe." If there is a baby, 24 weeks pregnant, and he was still using if. "Get out," I said to his mother. My voice didn't sound like mine. It sounded like someone else, someone harder, someone done. "Excuse me?" "Get out of my house, now." She looked at Mark. He looked at the floor. And in that moment, I saw the whole architecture of their relationship, the way she pulled the strings and he danced. The way I'd never really had a chance because there were two people in this marriage and I wasn't one of them. "We're just trying to protect the family assets," she said, standing up and smoothing her skirt. "Surely you can understand that. The only thing I understand is that you're a monster and you've turned my husband into one too. Get out before I call the police." She left, but not before turning at the door and saying, "Mark, call me later," like I wasn't even there, like I was a ghost in my own home. When she was gone, I turned to Mark. "You need to choose, right now, me and this baby, or her, because you can't have both anymore." "That's not fair," he said. "She's my mother, and I'm your wife, pregnant with your child, who you don't even believe exists." "I never said that." "You never said anything, Mark. That's the problem. You just stood there while she destroyed me piece by piece, and you never once told her to stop." He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. "I'm trying to keep the peace." "There is no peace. There's just me being systematically erased while you watch." He left that night. Said he needed to think. Went to stay at his mother's house, which told me everything I needed to know about his choice. I sat in our bedroom, hand on my belly, feeling the baby move, and I knew something had to change. I couldn't do this anymore. The pretending, the hoping, the sacrificing, it was killing me. That's when I heard it. The conversation I was never meant to hear. I'd gone to his mother's house the next day to get some of Mark's things he'd forgotten. I had a key still, and I thought the house was empty. But as I walked down the hallway toward his old bedroom, I heard voices from the study. The door was cracked open just enough. "She's nothing but trouble." His mother's voice, sharp and clear. "You should have seen this coming." "I know, Mom, but what am I supposed to do?" "Just replace her, get a divorce. This pregnancy nonsense will make it go away." "But what if she really is pregnant?" "Then we'll deal with it. There are ways." But I don't believe her for a second. Women like her, they're all the same. Desperate, manipulative. She saw a meal ticket and she grabbed it. The baby, though, if there is one. Don't even think about it. That's what she wants. You acknowledging it, claiming it, getting attached. But Mark, honey, you can do so much better. Someone from a good family. Someone who doesn't need your money because she has her own. I stood in that hallway, frozen. My hand pressed against the wall to keep from falling over. They were talking about me like I was a problem to be solved, an inconvenience to be disposed of. And Mark, my husband, the father of my child, was just sitting there going along with it. The baby kicked hard, right under my ribs, and it hurt. Everything hurt. My chest, my throat, my eyes. But underneath the hurt was something else, something cold and sharp and utterly clear, rage. Pure, crystallized rage. I backed out of the house as quietly as I'd entered, drove home with my hands shaking on the wheel, walked into our bedroom and looked around at this life I'd built, this marriage I'd fought for, and I saw it for what it was, a cage I'd walked into willingly, believing it was a home. They'd given me one last chance. One sacred line. They'd promised, both of them, that they supported me, that they believed me, that this baby, our baby, mattered. But that was a lie, just like everything else, and the dam inside me that had been holding back the flood of truth finally broke. I went to my desk and pulled out a notebook, started writing down everything, dates, times, conversations. The texts from his mother I'd screenshot, the emails Mark had left open, the doctor's appointments he'd missed, the ultrasound pictures he'd refused to look at. I documented it all with the kind of cold precision that comes from being done, from being so far past hurt that you've come out the other side as something new, something that fights back. Then I called my mom. "I need your help," I said. "Tell me what you need, baby. A lawyer, a good one, and maybe a place to stay while I figure this out. Done. Come home. We'll take care of you." But I wasn't done yet, because I realized something sitting there in that bedroom with my evidence spread out around me. They'd worked so hard to isolate me, to cut me off from anyone who might help me see clearly. They'd celebrated when I stopped talking to my friends, when I distanced myself from family, when I made them my whole world. Because a woman with no support system is a woman who can't fight back. So I started rebuilding. I called Rachel first. "It's me," I said when she answered. "And I'm so sorry." She was quiet for a moment. Then, "Are you okay?" "No, but I'm going to be. Can we meet for coffee?" We met the next day at this little place in downtown Phoenix, the kind with rickety tables and strong espresso. Rachel was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table with 2 cups in front of her. She'd ordered my usual, a vanilla latte with an extra shot, even though it had been months since we'd spoken. That small gesture, that remembered detail, made me want to cry. I told her everything, started from the beginning, from the announcement at his mother's house, all the way through to the conversation I'd overheard. She listened with this expression that was equal parts fury and relief, her hands wrapped around her coffee cup so tight her knuckles went white. When I finished, she reached across the table and grabbed my hand. "Thank God you finally see it," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I've been so worried about you. I know, you tried to warn me. You weren't ready to hear it, but you're here now. That's what matters." She squeezed my hand. "What do you need? What can I do?" "Just be my friend again. Help me remember who I was before all this. You've got me. Whatever you need, whenever you need it." She introduced me to her neighbor, a woman named Patricia who'd been through something similar 10 years ago. Patricia and I met for lunch the following week at a quiet restaurant in Scottsdale. She was in her 50s, with gray-streaked hair and sharp eyes that seemed to see right through me. I showed her my carefully documented evidence, and she looked through it with the kind of attention that told me she understood exactly what she was seeing. When she looked up, she nodded slowly. "You're smart," she said. "Most women wait too long to start keeping records, but you've got him. You've got both of them." "I need to know how to fight back," I said. "Not just legally. I need them to see what they've done, to face it publicly." Patricia smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of someone who'd been to war and come back with scars and wisdom. "Oh, honey, I can help you with that." She ordered us both tea, and when it arrived, she leaned forward. "Let me tell you my story," she said, "because I see myself in you 10 years ago." Patricia had been married to a man whose family had systematically destroyed her sense of self over the course of 5 years. His mother had convinced him that Patricia was mentally unstable, that she needed to be monitored, controlled. They'd taken over her finances, isolated her from friends, even tried to have her committed at one point. "The breaking point came when I was hospitalized for exhaustion," she said, stirring her tea slowly. "I'd been working 2 jobs because his mother convinced him I was spending all our money frivolously. I collapsed at work. And when I woke up in the hospital, my mother-in-law was there, telling the doctors I'd tried to hurt myself. What did you do? I asked, horrified. I recorded her, right there in the hospital room. She didn't know I had my phone under the blanket. And when she left, I called my sister, who I hadn't spoken to in 3 years because they'd convinced me she was toxic. My sister came and got me out of there that night. And your husband? Chose his mother, just like Mark is choosing his. She looked at me with fierce intensity. But here's what I learned. You can't fight these people with logic or emotion or love. They don't operate on that level. You fight them with evidence, with witnesses, with consequences. You make it impossible for them to deny what they've done. Over the next few weeks, Patricia became my mentor, my guide through the minefield of fighting back against coercive control. She taught me about the psychology of manipulation, about how abusers work to make their victims doubt reality. She gave me books to read, articles to study. The Gift of Fear by Gavin de Becker. Why Does He Do That? By Lundy Bancroft. Each page was like someone had written my story, had documented the exact pattern I was living through. And the more I learned, the more I saw how textbook it all was. The isolation, the reality denial, the way they'd positioned themselves as the reasonable ones while painting me as unstable, emotional, irrational. It was all there, laid out in psychological studies and case histories. I wasn't crazy. I was being systematically broken down using tactics that had been studied and documented for decades. I kept pretending everything was normal, went to dinner at his mother's house, smiled at family gatherings, let them think I was still that naive woman who believed their lies. But underneath, I was building my case, gathering allies, preparing. Mark came home a week later, sheepish and apologetic. I think we should go to counseling, he said. Sure, I agreed. That sounds like a good idea. We went to one session. The therapist, an older woman with kind eyes and gray hair pulled back in a bun, listened to both of us talk. Mark went first, painting this picture of me as paranoid and accusatory, convinced his mother hated me when she was just trying to be helpful. He made himself sound so reasonable, so patient with his unstable wife. When it was my turn, I pulled out my phone and played the recording. I'd gone back to his mother's house, you see. Planted my phone in the study before one of their conversations. And I'd gotten it all. Every vile word, every plot, every dismissal of my pregnancy as a con. The therapist's face went very still as she listened. When the recording ended, she looked at Mark with an expression I couldn't quite read. Is this your mother's voice? He couldn't answer, just sat there, pale as death. And you were present for this conversation? A tiny nod. I see. She turned to me. Do you feel safe in this relationship? No, I said. I don't. She gave me the number of a domestic violence hotline. Told Mark the session was over and that she wouldn't be seeing us again. What you're describing, she said to him, is a pattern of emotional abuse and coercive control. I can't in good conscience provide couples counseling when there's an active pattern of abuse. We drove home in silence, and I felt nothing. No vindication, no satisfaction. Just this vast emptiness where love used to live. I started reading more, learning more. Did you know that 75% of so-called difficult divorces actually involve some form of coercive control? I'd become a statistic, just another woman ground down by people who claimed to love her. But I was going to be a different kind of statistic, the kind that got out. Easter was coming up, and his mother was hosting again. The whole extended family would be there. Aunts, uncles, cousins, the works. She called Mark and insisted we come. I'm not going, I told him. You have to. She's expecting us. Then tell her I'm sick. She'll know you're lying. Good. I want her to know. But then Patricia said something that changed my mind. If you really want to hurt them, you need an audience. Private confrontations they can deny, twist, reframe. But public ones? Those stick. So I agreed to go. Told Mark I'd thought about it and decided family was important. He looked so relieved, so grateful, and I felt nothing. Just that cold clarity that had become my constant companion. The week before Easter, I printed everything: the texts, the emails, the transcripts of recordings. Patricia helped me organize it into folders, color-coded and tabbed. We made enough copies for every adult who'd be at that dinner. "Are you sure about this?" Patricia asked. "I've never been more sure of anything in my life." Easter Sunday I wore white maternity dress, white cardigan, white flats. I looked like an angel or a bride or a sacrifice. I felt like a warrior. We arrived at his mother's house and she greeted us at the door, all smiles. "So glad you could make it," she said to me, and her eyes traveled to my belly, now obviously pregnant at 30 weeks, and something flickered in her expression. Disgust? Fear? I couldn't tell and didn't care. Dinner was the usual performance: ham and scalloped potatoes, green bean casserole, rolls from the bakery she claimed were homemade. Everyone gathered around the enormous dining table, all 23 of them, making small talk about jobs and weather and grandchildren. I sat quietly, my hands folded over my belly, waiting. Dessert was served, pecan pie and coffee. His mother stood up to make a toast, something about family and blessings and staying together, and when she sat down, I stood up. "I'd like to say something," I announced. Mark's hand shot out, grabbed my wrist. "Not now." I pulled free. "Yes, now." You could hear a pin drop. 23 faces turned toward me, curious and uncomfortable. "I want to thank you all for being here today," I said, my voice steady, "because there's something I need you all to know, something I need witnesses for." I reached into my bag and pulled out the folders, started passing them around the table. Mark tried to grab them, but Patricia's husband, who'd come as my guest, blocked him. Big guy, former linebacker. Mark sat back down. "What is this?" someone asked. "Evidence," I said simply, "of a campaign to gaslight me, isolate me, and deny my pregnancy. Of conversations where I was called a liar, a gold digger, and a fraud. Of plans to make my baby disappear." His mother stood up so fast her chair fell over. "This is ridiculous. Mark, control your wife." "Control me?" I laughed, and it didn't sound like my laugh. It sounded like breaking things. "You spent months trying to erase me, and you think you get to tell me what to do now?" People were reading the folders. I watched their faces change: horror, disgust, shock. Mark's Aunt Susan looked up at his mother with something like hatred. "Is this real?" she demanded. "Did you really say these things?" "She took them out of context," his mother sputtered. "She's manipulating all of you." "Context?" I pulled out my phone. "Let me give you context." I played the recording, all of it, the study conversation, her voice, Mark's voice, plotting my disposal like I was trash. When it ended, the room was silent, except for someone crying. I think it was Mark's cousin Jennifer. "I'm 8 months pregnant," I said quietly, "with a baby that my husband won't acknowledge and his mother claims doesn't exist. A baby that kicked me awake this morning at 6 a.m. and is kicking me right now, right here." I put my hand on my belly. "A baby I will protect with everything I have. And if any of you, think what they did was okay, you can leave with them." His mother opened her mouth, but Aunt Susan cut her off. "Get out." "What?" "Get out of my sight, both of you." She was looking at Mark too now. "I've watched you poison this family for years, but this is too far." Other voices joined in. Cousins, uncles, even Mark's grandmother, who I'd always thought was sweet but useless. They turned on them like wolves, demanding answers, explanations, apologies. Mark tried to defend himself, but the recording didn't lie. His own voice, agreeing to make my baby go away. The family scattered after that. Some left in disgust. Others stayed to talk to me, apologize, ask what they could do to help. Patricia stood beside me like a guard, and my mom, who I'd invited, held my hand. We'd come full circle. The family I'd sacrificed trying to gain acceptance from these people was back. The real family. The one that mattered. Mark's mother was uninvited from all future family events. Aunt Susan made that very clear. You're not welcome here anymore. Not at Thanksgiving, not at Christmas, not at birthday parties. You're done. The legal fallout was swift. My lawyer, a shark in a suit, went after Mark with everything we had. The coercive control, the financial manipulation I'd discovered when I'd started looking at our accounts, the abandonment. It turned out he'd been transferring money to his mother for months. Money that should have been going to our joint savings. Planning ahead, just in case he needed to leave me penniless. But I'd documented that too. Every transfer, every suspicious withdrawal. And now it was evidence of financial abuse. The judge was not impressed. Mark lost more than just his reputation. He lost access to accounts. He lost the trust of his colleagues when the story leaked. He lost everything he'd been trying to protect. His mother tried to salvage things. Showed up at my lawyer's office with her own lawyer, threatening lawsuits for defamation. But you can't defame someone with the truth. Her own recorded words condemned her. The divorce was finalized 2 weeks before I gave birth. Mark had to pay child support based on his full income, plus alimony, plus my legal fees. The house became mine. His mother was ordered to stay away from me and the baby, a restraining order in place for 5 years. I gave birth on a Tuesday in April, just like the doctor predicted. A girl, 7 pounds 3 ounces, with dark hair and lungs like an opera singer. My mom was with me, Rachel was with me, Patricia was in the waiting room, and when the nurse asked if I wanted to call the father, I said no. He'd given up that right when he chose his mother over his child. They tried to apologize afterward. Both of them. Mark sent emails begging for visitation. His mother sent a card, unsigned, saying she'd made mistakes. I deleted the emails, burned the card. Because some things don't deserve forgiveness. Some betrayals are too deep, too calculated, too cruel. But here's the thing about external justice, about watching someone face real consequences for their actions. It doesn't heal you. It doesn't undo what they did. Mark lost his reputation, his family, his money. His mother lost her position in the family, her control, her power. And I was glad, don't get me wrong. I was satisfied, but I was also still hurt, still scarred, still carrying the weight of those months of being told my reality wasn't real. The real victory came later, came slowly, came in the form of my daughter's first smile, her first laugh, her first step. Came in reconnecting with my mom and Rachel and building a new circle of friends who actually gave a damn. Came in therapy sessions where I learned the clinical term for what they'd done to me and realized I wasn't crazy, wasn't too sensitive, wasn't any of the things they'd called me. Patricia introduced me to a support group for women who'd experienced coercive control. We met every Tuesday night at a community center in Scottsdale. 10 women sitting in a circle sharing stories that sounded eerily similar. Different details, same pattern. Isolation, reality denial, financial control. And every single one of us had sacrificed something trying to make it work. I gave up my job, one woman said. He convinced me we didn't need 2 incomes. I gave up my friends, another added. He said they were too negative. When it was my turn, I said, I gave up believing my own mind, and that almost cost me everything. We rebuilt together, that group of women, shared job leads, babysitting duties, legal advice, became a family of survivors who understood each other in ways no one else could. My daughter grew up surrounded by strong women who'd been through hell and come out scarred but standing. I wanted that for her. Wanted her to know that strength isn't about never falling. It's about getting back up. I went back to school, finished the degree I'd abandoned when Mark said I didn't need it. Got a job at a nonprofit helping other women escape abusive situations. Turned my pain into purpose, my experience into advocacy. And slowly, so slowly, I started to feel like myself again. Not the self I was before Mark, but someone new, someone harder but also freer. My daughter is 3 now. She has Mark's eyes but my stubbornness, thank God. We live in a modest house in Tempe, nothing fancy but it's ours, mine and hers. The walls are painted colors I chose. The furniture is second-hand but comfortable. There's a garden in the back where we grow tomatoes and basil and her favorite, sunflowers. Mark sees her twice a month, supervised visits arranged through the court. He tries, I'll give him that. Brings toys, reads her stories. But she calls him Mark, not Daddy, and I don't correct her. She'll figure out their relationship on her own time, in her own way. I won't poison it, but I won't force it either. His mother sends birthday cards and Christmas presents that I donate to charity. The restraining order is still in place, and I intend to renew it. Some people don't deserve second chances. Some people are too toxic, too damaged, too willing to hurt others to protect themselves. She's proven who she is. I believe her. Last month, Rachel and I took my daughter to the Phoenix Zoo. We were watching the flamingos when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. It's me. Mark's voice, tentative. Don't hang up. I'm timing this, I said. You have 30 seconds. I'm sorry, for all of it, for not protecting you, for not believing you, for letting Mom. I was wrong, about everything. Okay. That's it? Just okay. What do you want me to say, Mark? That it's fine? That all is forgiven? It's not. It won't be. You made your choices and now you live with them. I just want you to know I regret it. Every day. Good, I said. You should. I hung up. Rachel looked at me with raised eyebrows. Mark? She asked. Yep. How do you feel? I thought about it, really thought about it. How did I feel? Not angry anymore, not hurt, just free. I feel fine, I said, and I meant it. Before I end my story, I want to share something important I learned through all of this. Something that might save you or someone you love from going through what I did. It's about intergenerational trauma and how it poisons families across generations without anyone even realizing it's happening. See, as I worked through my own healing, I started researching Mark's family history, and I discovered something chilling. His mother had been treated the exact same way by her mother-in-law when she was pregnant with Mark. Isolated, doubted, accused. And instead of breaking that cycle, she perpetuated it. She became the very thing that had hurt her, passed that trauma down to her son, and infected my marriage with it. Intergenerational trauma works like that. It's pain that gets transmitted through families like a genetic disease. Parents who were abused often abuse their children, not always physically, but emotionally, psychologically. Children who grow up in homes with coercive control often seek out or become coercive controllers themselves. The cycle repeats and repeats unless someone has the courage to stop it. Research shows that trauma literally changes how our brains develop. Children who witness or experience abuse have higher rates of anxiety, depression, and relationship problems as adults. They're more likely to tolerate abuse in their own relationships because it feels normal to them. Familiar. And the really insidious part. They often don't even recognize it as abuse because it's all they've ever known. Mark grew up watching his mother manipulate and control his father, watched his father give in, make peace, keep quiet. So when his mother did the same thing to me, it didn't register as wrong. It registered as love, as family, as how things are supposed to work. Breaking that cycle takes conscious effort. It takes therapy, education, and a willingness to look at your family's patterns honestly. You have to recognize the trauma for what it is, understand how it shaped you, and actively work to not pass it on to your own children. I'm determined that my daughter will never carry this poison. She'll grow up knowing that love doesn't manipulate, family doesn't gaslight, and if anyone tries to make her doubt her own reality, she has the tools to recognize it and fight back. Some warning signs of intergenerational trauma in families. Family members who can't have honest conversations without someone getting defensive or angry. Secrets that everyone knows but nobody talks about. Patterns of the same conflicts appearing in every generation. People who sacrifice their own well-being to keep the peace. Children who grow up feeling responsible for their parents' emotions. A family culture that values loyalty over honesty, image over truth. If you recognize these patterns in your own family, please seek help. Talk to a therapist who specializes in family systems. Read books about breaking generational trauma. Connect with others who've been through it, because you can stop the cycle. You can be the one who says, "This ends with me." And if you're worried about a friend or family member who might be experiencing what I went through, here's what helped me most. People who listened without judgment, who validated my reality instead of questioning it, who offered concrete help like Patricia did, instead of just sympathy, who stayed connected even when I pushed them away, who reminded me, gently but firmly, that I deserved better. Don't give up on someone in an abusive situation, even if they can't see it yet. Keep the door open. Keep offering support, because someday they might be ready to walk through it, and when they are, they'll need you there. Thank you for staying with me until the end. I know this was long and heavy, and maybe hit close to home for some of you. But if my story helps even one person recognize the signs earlier than I did, if it gives someone the courage to leave or the wisdom to never enter a toxic situation in the first place, then everything I went through meant something. I'm curious. Where are you listening from? What time is it where you are? Drop a comment and let me know. And if this story resonated with you, if you felt seen or validated or understood, please give it a like. It helps more people find these stories, and who knows, maybe it'll be exactly what someone needs to hear today. What would you have done in my place? Would you have confronted them publicly like I did, or handled it differently? I genuinely want to know your thoughts, so share them in the comments below. If you're not already subscribed, please consider subscribing to this channel. We share real stories from real people who've survived the unthinkable and come out stronger. And if you want more stories like this, check out the video about the woman who discovered her husband's second family, or the one about the mother-in-law who tried to steal her grandchild. Both are linked in the description. Until the next story, take care of your heart, protect your peace, and remember, you deserve better than someone who makes you question your own reality. Until next time.